The ability to keep up with rapidly changing systems and ideas is crucial, or you'll be left behind. If you can keep up with it, if you could quickly master new things, new hard things, very quickly, that's a huge advantage. The ability to concentrate intensely is a trainable skill. How do you train it? I'll give you 3 quick concrete things that seem to work well. Pretty quickly, however, you'll see significant gains. You do this for a month on a regular basis, you can substantially increase your brain's comfort with sustaining concentration on a single target. Most of us would agree with this premise that we're probably have a harder time sustaining now than we probably ever had in recent history, and that people's schedules and attention are probably more fragmented in the small slivers than they've ever been before in recent history. We know why this is. It's almost like a paradox going on. If you were one of the few individuals or the few organizations to cultivate this skill, at least in the climate and culture we have right now, you'll thrive. It is a huge competitive advantage, something that is probably going to be overvalued by the marketplace right now. So deep work is professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capacities to their limit. So it's when you're locked in on something, no distraction for a long period of time, not even the slightest glance, and you're thinking really hard, trying to make progress on whatever this cognitive task that you're trying to do. What I want to argue is that it's changed as we go into the early 21st century. I want to argue today the ability to do deep work is relevant to a large fraction. The more you do it, the better you are at it, the more success you can have in your career, the more satisfaction you can have in your career. My 2 big reasons why I think deep work is now relevant to most knowledge workers. Here's the first one. Deep work helps you learn complicated things. Deliberate practice is basically science's best answer to the question of how do human beings master complicated things. Be it a complicated physical task like trying to surf without getting eaten by those sharks, or a cognitive task. I'm trying to master algebra, I'm trying to master a programming language, I'm trying to master a new business strategy, right? Whatever it is, if it's complicated and you want to master it, deliberate practice is our best understanding of how people reach these expert level skills on complicated things. The theory itself is quite simple. It says if you want to get better at something, you have to practice it, but not just any type of practice. You have to do practice activities that are designed to push you past where you're comfortable, to stretch you past where you're comfortable, and therefore ultimately create growth, to improve the weak spots. You're stretching yourself a little bit better. You stretch yourself in a very specific area, you get a little bit better. That's how people master complicated things. That's deliberate practice theory. So the more comfortable you are with deep work, the more comfortable you are falling into a state of intense concentration, the easier time you will have mastering complicated things. Well, we know in an increasingly competitive knowledge economy, the ability to keep up with rapidly changing systems and ideas is crucial, or you'll be left behind. If you can keep up with it, if you could quickly master new things, new hard things, very quickly, that's a huge advantage. All right, here's the second reason why I think deep work is relevant to most knowledge workers. It helps you produce more things and higher quality things for the same amount of time. Basically say, I'm working on something hard right now. I'm single tasking. I don't have multiple windows open. I've turned off my notifications. I know all about that. I'm just single tasking on this one hard thing, except every 5 or 10 minutes you do the quick check. I'm mainly doing this. Let me just quick check my inbox. Okay, there's 30 seconds. I'm back to this. Let me quick check my phone. Okay, now I'm back to this. Let me quick check what's going on out there, right? And it feels like you're single tasking. It feels like you're doing the right thing. But if these quick checks are frequent enough, what you're doing is leaving yourself in a persistent state of attention residue. You never allow this residue time to clear out before you slather some more on, And what happens is that you're essentially keeping yourself in a persistent state then of reduced cognitive performance. It is the absence of any distraction that allows deep work to push your mind to levels that most people never get to. And therefore, you're able to produce a higher quantity of work and a higher quality of work for the time you actually spend working on your project. The ability to concentrate intensely is a trainable skill. A lot of people think about deep work as a habit, like flossing their teeth, something they know how to do, they just need to do more often. How do you train it? I'll give you 3 quick concrete things that seem to work well. Number 1, embrace boredom. So I don't mean that you need to be bored all the time, but what I do mean is that on a regular basis, at least a couple times per day, you experience boredom. By which I mean, technically, you feel a craving for novel stimuli, and you don't satisfy that craving. You just stand there bored. You're in line, you just stay in line without pulling out the phone. Your friend goes up at dinner to go to the bathroom, you just sit there at the table and are bored without giving yourself some stimuli. What has happened in the era of the smartphone is that for the first time in human history, we actually have the capacity to completely eliminate boredom from our life. Because of the smartphone, you can go through your entire day without ever feeling the sense of, oh, I'm bored, I want some novel stimuli. You can always deliver that to yourself through a smartphone. The reason this is a problem for deep workers is that builds up over time a very strong association. It's almost like a Pavlovian connection. Your brain learns boredom, stimuli, boredom, stimuli. So a key foundation to succeeding with deep work is to break this Pavlovian connection. And the best way to do it is just to experience on a regular basis, not all the time, but on a regular basis, boredom where you just remain bored. Your brain then breaks that connection, it rewrites the script, and it says, okay, sometimes when I'm bored I get stimuli, sometimes when I'm bored I don't get stimuli. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. That's a much healthier relationship to have with your brain, and it means it'll be much more comfortable. comes time to concentrate intensely on something. Because it says, yeah, it's just one of those circumstances where I don't get stimuli. That's okay, I'm used to it. Second strategy for training yourself to do deep work, it's called productive meditation. Incredibly effective. You take a professional problem, you go for a walk. I don't know why it needs to be walking, but it does. It works better than sitting, it works better than running. Walking seems to be the optimal activity here. While you're walking, you try to make progress on this problem just in your head. As in mindfulness meditation, when you see your attention is wandering from the problem, it's thinking about some email you need to send or what's coming up next, you just notice that and bring it back to the problem. Wanders again, you notice that, you bring it back to the problem. At first, this can be very difficult. Your attention's all over the place. Pretty quickly, however, you'll see significant gains. You do this for a month on a regular basis, you can substantially increase your brain's comfort with sustaining concentration on a single target. The final quick strategy I want to mention here for how you can train your ability to do deep work is the notion of doing some type of interval training. You get a countdown timer, use the one on your phone. You say, I'm going to work on this particular task deeply. I'm going to start my timer, and I'm not going to do any distraction, no glances, no just checks, no inboxes, no phones, no conversations, until the timer gets down to 0. If I fail in that and do a quick check somewhere in there, I have to stop and reset the timer and consider that to be a failed interval. The psychology here is that if you just tell yourself, okay, I need to work deeply on this thing all day long, your brain's going to say, well, we're going to have to take some breaks anyway, so now is as good a time as any, and you're going to find yourself doing these checks much more often. But if you say, no, I'm doing this for 40 minutes, and then I can go nuts on my phone if I want, but 40 minutes, that's all it is. Your brain is a little bit embarrassed, like, well, okay, I don't have a strong argument for you that we can't go 40 minutes without looking at the inbox, and that bit of cognitive shaming actually helps you get exposure to working on something without distraction. I say interval training because what tends to work well here is you start with a time period you're comfortable at. When you notice that you consistently hit those intervals without failing, you increase the time period by a little bit. And then when you're successfully hitting that new length without failures, you increase that time period a little bit. It stretches systematically the amount of time your brain is comfortable focusing on one thing without any types of distraction.